So I thought I'd give a quick teaching that is non-liberating, that can be very useful in your daily life while you're seeking. And it can be very liberating, but it doesn't lead to genuine full liberation. Hopefully that makes sense. It isn't a true non-dual teaching either, as maybe you'll see. But it's a wonderful teaching, like many non-dual teachings, or many dualistic teachings. Wonderful teaching. At least I hope. It goes like this. There's a part of you, the most essential part of you, that never changes. There's a part of you, it's the most essential aspect of what you are, never changes. It is your awareness, your consciousness. It never changes. What it sees, what it perceives, varies, changes. But what it is never changes. It is that which is looking, it is that which is seeing, it is that which is perceiving. It is that which knows the body-mind. The body-mind changes, but that which knows the body-mind has never changed. So far, so good, right? This sounds pretty normal, doesn't it? The mind may be agitated, confused, or it may be calm and serene. Or the mind may have a moment of insight. Aha, I got it. The mind goes through all these changes. And one day it thinks it's got it. Next day, maybe it thinks it's lost it. One day it's agitated. Another day, it's calm, serene. But there is something which perceives these changes. Something that knows the calm mind, the agitated mind. The mind that feels confused, the mind that thinks it knows. It's still perceived by a perceiver. Consciousness, awareness that never changes. Only because the consciousness doesn't change can it be aware of that which is changing. Only because the consciousness never changes can it be aware of that which is changing. Now, whatever happens, that consciousness is never disturbed. That awareness, I'm using these words synonymously, consciousness, awareness. That consciousness That awareness is never harmed. It's never touched. It's never affected. And I want you to think of it like this. Just as what's happening on the movie never affects the screen. What's happening in your perceptions never affects the consciousness. You can have a violent scene in the movie, but the screen is unharmed. You can have an explosion. You can have a nuclear explosion in the movie. You can have a scene of war, of destruction, of fire. And the screen is untouched. The screen upon which or within which it is projected, depending on the type of screen you're watching, is unharmed. In the same way, your consciousness isn't unharmed by any of this happening. And this consciousness is what you are. It doesn't matter how bad or how good things get. What you are is unchanged, unharmed. So worry not. Fear not. There's never anything to fear. There's never anything to worry, because no matter what happens to you, the essence of you, that part of you, is unaffected. What you are as consciousness, which is what you are, is untouched. So don't think about it anymore. Hear it enough times until it goes into you, then have faith and live your life happily. Knowing that even when you forget, even when you lose touch with it, it is what you are anyway. And be happy. Just as you don't need to remember your name, you don't need to remember this teaching constantly. You just need to understand it so it goes within your body, mind. And then you can go about your life being happy. That's the teaching. So let me know what you think. Have you heard this teaching before? Is it a good teaching? Is it a bad teaching? How does it work for you? I'd love you to tell me. Or you can talk about something completely, you can ignore everything I've just said if it's not relevant to you, and we can talk about something completely different. Say a couple of things. Oh, Bhagwan, again and again, I fall in love with you. Oh, Bhagwan Ramana, again and again, I fall in love with you. Again and again, I surrender to you. Again and again, I see that you are in fact I. You are in fact I. There is no one else, nothing else. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Arunachala Ramanaya. Om. Om Shanti. 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 Om Tat Sat. Thank you. So maybe someone can see what is the difference between the teaching I've given and the true teaching. Maybe we can talk about that.
There was a lovely just about your initial lower teaching, and I think your invocatory prayer that you said was a lovely differentiation to the lower teaching,
Correct.
because you talked about again and again, and I love you, Bhagwan, and again, where the lower teaching was said, like I can go off and live my life and know what I don't have to do anything again and again, you know. I loved how it was juxtaposed the
Yes.
two
You could feel the difference,
diverse.
right?
Yes, yes.
Could other people feel the difference between the so for what I
Mhm.
did, I gave a lower teaching that said it was not liberating, but that can not ultimately liberating, but can be a very wonderful teaching. And then I was trying to help, and I've obviously confused some people too. which is fine. It's a part of the process. It's actually going to end up good. It's going to end up better for everyone because we can talk this through. Um, but then I gave an invocation to Bhagwan. Could anyone see the difference between the lower teaching and then the invocation? There's a substantive difference in the teaching, and then there's a qualitative difference in the feeling and the quality of the feeling and the resonance and the vibration of the teaching. So the teachings are different, both on the level of content or substance and energetically, vibrationally, qualitatively. Totally different teachings. The the lower teaching remains on the level of the intellect. The higher teaching, the true teaching, goes to the heart. It's totally different. Is the difference between playing football, soccer, football, on a computer game and thinking that's playing football. You know, you're just on a computer game doing this with your thumbs on the keypad, as opposed to actually playing football, which is the one where you kick the ball with your feet. Mhm. Couldn't resist, sorry. It's totally different. Sounds the same though, doesn't it? That is, oh yeah, you know, they've got the players and they're kicking the ball around, but one is a computer game and one is actually playing. Ken, sorry, was there anything else you wanted to say or
Yeah,
ask?
there was one other thing is that, the whole idea of the lower teaching was that, once I know it, I can forget about it. And it neglects the whole idea of self-effort, and the need for self-effort, because it's difficult. It's so difficult to do nothing, but it takes effort to do nothing, like we talked about in a few satsangs ago. So that the lower teaching as well, I know it already, so I'll just go off my merry way and I'm good. Whereas the higher teaching is about how do I get stay engaged with the self and put the effort in to stay there. There's a line that talks about we it's about abiding in the self. We attend to the self to abide in the self. So it's the constant attendance to the self as much as possible. There's where the effort comes
Say that
in.
again. You're absolutely right. I want you to say it again.
It's the constant attending to the self with the goal of abiding in the self.
That's the difference. That's it. You see, the lower teaching. You're in London, and you say, I know Paris is there, so I'm good. I know I'm the self, so I'm good. I have faith in that knowledge. Yeah, you stay in London, but you have faith that Paris exists, so you're happy. You see, that's the lower teaching. Still liberating, because isn't it? If you never knew the self existed, say you're a body mind entity, you never knew about the self, you never knew about God, you never knew about heaven, and now you know about them and you believe in them, you have faith in it on some to some degree. That's so much better. This is why it's liberating, not fully liberating, but relatively speaking, liberating. This is the lower teaching. Higher teaching is when we actually leave London and go to Paris, which means we actually turn our attention away from second and third persons or objects and towards the subject. The subject is the seer, the observer. Yeah. But rather than just saying, oh, I am the seer, the point isn't to do that. The point is to go say, okay, I am the seer, and then turn your attention towards that seer. I am that which is aware, but then that's the I am. But then to turn my attention towards that and discover what I actually am. And then you discover that you're not a witness, actually. There's nothing you see. You're just the I or the self. Do you see the difference? So, um, See, typically, the lower teaching will be given first to point out that there's something called the self, right? And then you're meant to turn your attention towards it, or rest as it, or be with it, sink it back into it. However you want to phrase it. There's a movement, as you rightly said, Gail, away from objects towards the subject, away from the seen towards the seer. There's some kind of movement, however you want to phrase that movement. I turn my attention onto the self. I let go of objects, sink back into the selves. I be with the self. I be with Bhagawan. However you want to phrase it, doesn't matter. But there's a process of coming back to yourself. And therefore, by definition, away from non-self, which is the object. Therefore, you actually discover what the self is, as opposed to remaining as a body mind entity who has a genuine sense, because these lower teachings, there's something genuine there. You know, a lot of these so-called false teachings, there's a germ of truth there. There's a grain of truth in this. That's how they work. That's why people follow them, because there is something there. If there was nothing there at all, no one would ever follow the false teachings or the non-liberating teachings. But there's something useful in them, which is why people follow them, because there's some value. In this particular one, there is the body mind entity, which is the wrong identity, but the body mind thing does have a genuine sense of something beyond itself and has faith in that and rests in that faith. But it's still identified as a body mind. That's its primary identity. And it's seeing everything through the distortion of being a person. And when the self is seen through the distortion of being a person, it's externalized as God or Guru or the soul. You see it as something apart from you or within you or outside of you, but distinct from you in some way. Not quite the same as you. Thank you. Thank you, Gail. Thank you,
Yeah.
Ken. Thank you, Ken. Ken, I did interrupt you. Was there anything else you wanted to say?
Just finally, I think that verse from Guru Vajrayakoba that I quoted, the whole idea of when awareness is steadily observed,
That's it.
the the steadily observed piece is the
Exactly.
attending to the self. Yeah,
That's
and
it.
it offers a comparison to the lower teaching.
That's it. That's the difference.
Mm. Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome.